Here's a little problem that somebody's brought in to see if we can sort out. We've got a pair of Moto Guzzi cylinder heads which have been modified to twin plug. We'll flip that over. You can see the original plug there, and they've had this additional one put in. Takes a little 10mm thread plug, which goes down that hole. The only problem is you can't get a plug socket down it. So yeah, we've got to try and bore that out a bit, give it a bit more clearance for a plug socket. I think first step is going to be making kind of a guide rod to screw down there so that we can figure out what kind of angle this is going in at, and then we can put it up on the mill, try and line it up and see if we can bore it out a smidge. Well, I'm just trying to set this cylinder head up on the mill, proving to be a bit tricky. The original idea was to have it round the other way, instead of, this is where the plug goes in, and this is our setting piece, which I've ended up turning from a piece of aluminium. Originally the idea was that this is going to be on this side, and we'd have the head of the mill set over at the angle to come in at. But this is actually a very shallow angle. It's only 36.5 degrees from the horizontal. So what's that? 53.5 from the vertical. And the scale on our mill, we've got enough light on it, probably not, only goes round to 45. So what I'm trying to do here is to set this up on an adjustable angle plate, and then we'll flip this vertically, wind the head over to 30, whatever it was I said, 36.5, and then we'll set something in there, a boring head or something, and try and get the machining done. Next problem at the minute is getting this lined up in this direction. So I'm going to try and put an angle plate up here and clock that up, and hopefully it'll all line up and we can get on with it. Well, this is plan B on lining this up along the length of the table on the mill. What I'm hoping to do, we've got a length of silver steel in the drill chuck in a mill spindle. It's not spot on, unfortunately. A little bit of run out here. But this thing doesn't, what we're trying to do here is doesn't have to be within thous. So I will just try and set that sort of in the middle of its variation, and now I will try and line the head up so that as I run the table along, this will just skim our setting piece. Well, I reckon I've got this pretty close. Yep, I'm sure that's okay. Tightened all the nuts down that hold this head down onto the angle plate. Straps across top, couldn't figure any other way of doing it. It would have been nice to put bolts straight into the head, but we'd have had to have an adapter plate on here. So we've only got a pair of these to do. So these straps should be good enough. Right, let's tilt this over, adjust the head, and see what it looks like. Got the head set over at 37.5 degrees, which is what I thought I'd measured the angle of our testing board, but this is not quite right, so I'll try to clock this up. We've got a bit of movement here. That is not parallel. It seems to be getting closer at the bottom of the travel, so I think we need to have a bit more angle. Let's try and tilt it another, I don't know, quarter of a degree, see what that's. That's a bit better. I don't know how straight this bar is. That's not moving much. I think we'll leave that angle set at that. Right, let's actually get it lined up now. Setting up the actual position now, and I've got a short setting bar here, 10mm thread in the end screwed into the plug hole, and this was just centre drilled on the lathe. We've got a centre drill and a chuck in the mill, and this comes down and we're close. It's actually moving the setting piece as we're going in there. So that is really close. That's got to be within a couple of thou. I'm going to leave it at that. So we've swapped out the drill chuck for a boring head. Got a depth stop set, and start boring this out. Well, we'll just touch this part of the casting here, so we'll wind the boring bar out a bit, larger diameter, machine it again until to size. Just setting the second cylinder head up now, and I've just adjusted the angle. ever so slightly, a quarter of a degree or something, back to 36.5. But I originally thought this was this needed to be set at, and that's a lot closer than it was before I moved it. That's pretty good. I reckon that's it. So let's get our first tested setting bar out, put the second one in. Bit hard to see if that's big enough without actually getting the plug socket in the hole. And of course it won't get in the hole with the boring bar there, so let's just take the boring bar out. Oh, that is pretty snug. I think we'll just take another tenth thou out of that. A little bit of extra clearance won't hurt. Well, that's both cylinder heads now bored out so that we can get the plug socket down the plug hole, which is that there, goes in nice. That wasn't the end of the job though, because the other problem is a head bolt goes through here. And the head of the bolt was also getting in the way of the plug socket. So what we had to do, angle the head of the bolt, and we've taken that down as far as we dare. The shank from the top is the same as the angle of the plug hole, 30, can't remember, 36.5 degrees, and we're just about eating into the socket on that, so I didn't want to take that back anymore. So what I had to do was to bore out spot face where the head of the bolt goes down to. You can see it just in the bottom there. Took that surface down a little bit. It's about the same as what we've got on this side, which is the original Moto Guzzi counter boring for the cylinder head bolt on the other side. So yeah, had to do that for that one. And on the other one, can we see down the hole? Turned out there was a couple of steel washers in there. This is the remains of one, which came out when I hit the bottom of the hole with a boring tool and wrecked the tip of the boring bar. But yeah, got one washer out. There's still another one in there. But the bolt goes in far enough. Head clears the hole for the socket. So finally, these cylinder heads can be put onto an engine. Bit of a palaver, and it can't have been an easy job to put that hole in the first place. I don't know who did it, and I'm guessing that our customer bought these heads already done. But yeah, a bit of work in doing this. Twin plug conversions. Is it worth it? I don't know. Maybe it makes a bit more power. Guess that's the idea. Bit more efficiency. Still, these two are done, ready to be used.